Welcome to Look Behind the Look, the celebrated podcast that explores your favorite looks in film, television, and fashion history. Through conversations with the fashion world's elite and award-winning hair, makeup, and costume designers on sets around the world, you will see and hear exciting tales from behind the scenes, career origin stories, and tons of advice and tips. I'm your host, Tiffany Bartok. Hey everybody, welcome to Look Behind the Look. This week we are getting further into awards season with Frances Hannon, of course the mastermind behind all things Wicked and Wicked for Good. I'm so happy to have her on the show this year because last year our schedules did not align, and so I'm so glad they did this time. She's so busy and I really appreciate her taking the time to talk to us about all things Wicked. So enjoy this conversation and maybe you'll hear a thing or two that you didn't know about the hair and makeup design on Wicked and Wicked for Good. Enjoy. Frances, we are talking about Wicked for Good, and I am so excited to have you and to be talking about the film. We were just talking about how the films were together when filming. So what was that like for you to have both of the films being made at once?
Well, it was wonderful because it's not been
Oh,
done before.
right.
Sometimes in the morning we'd be doing Wicked for Good, and then in the afternoon we might be filming Wicked Part One. Often, as you can imagine, it's all to do with the schedule and the timings and getting the most of the day for John with the artist. So it could be that the set change was needed, or the lighting change, or my makeup change might be what was important to that day. So when we thought of it, we only thought of one film. It is only one to us. And you break down your timeline and your research so that your story is complete from beginning of part one to end of part two. And then you have a very good plan or a very good foundation for how it breaks down each day and what's needed. But as you know, I mean, with our life, we lay down the foundation artist wise and costume wise and everything, but then the artists bring everything themselves. And as they learn more about how they see Elphaba and Galinda and Fiyero and every artist, they would often then have an input to how they might want to change the look that was planned for that day. More intensity, less intensity. So we work very much in conjunction and big collaboration with the artists and with the director and, of course, all the HODs.
That's really interesting. I did read about that, about the women being amazing collaborators with you. How did the women evolve visually from one film to the next?
Well, it was very important. I mean, we tell a little silent story, a visual silent behind the scenes, not behind the scenes, very much in front of the scenes. But I lay down my own thought process, my little storyline. Why does Galinda feel like that day? Is she heartbroken? What do I think she
Mm.
might be? Would she be crying there maybe? Or same with Elphaba. And then, of course, the artists have their bigger picture and their character that they bring and very collaboratively work on it. But when we started, we very much like Ariana came in and just said she didn't bring anything from her, obviously, her hugely successful music life and everything. She came in completely open to how we visualize Galinda, and then we
Mm.
collaborated very much and very much used her REM products and everything that we know that she loved, that she knows suited her. But our main thing we had to achieve at the beginning was the beautiful green for Elphaba that was telling its own story that Cynthia very much wanted to do practically, but everything John Chu liked everything practical as well,
Mm.
which was important to everything emotionally, but also to leave a long working day for John. One has to be,
Yes.
don't create too many different styles. Think about how Elphaba, who has had this really emotional, hard life. Does she look in the mirror? Where does her history come from? And with that, and collaborating with Cynthia and with Ari, we were able to tell this, I think, a wonderful story that really showed the difference from Wicked Part One to Wicked for Good. If you remember Shears and then you look at For Good, they look much stronger, much more mature
Stronger.
and more
Stronger and mature.
mature,
Yes.
but it's not done with any aging. It
Right.
wasn't an aging process. We use, like, for example, It's all subliminal, really. We used shorter, very warm blonde wigs for Ariana Grande, which made her look younger. And for Cynthia, we made sure I realized very early on in the prep that black hair really didn't work for her or her character. Whereas, obviously, if one looked at the stage, you'd go straight to the black. It just didn't work on her face. So for her youth, with the micro braids, we added lots of brown. And then for Wicked for Good,
Ah.
we gave her like an extra foot in length of hair, freed up the hair, kept the little micro braids, but put much more dark into the braids. So you had a lovely contrast both for Galinda and for Elphaba with regards to that. And though many may not notice, the actual story is there and the strength comes through.
I think people do notice it, whether it registers emotionally or, you know, yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. What were some of the elements to maturing Ari? Was it in the application of makeup or mostly with the wigs?
I think it's a combination completely, but
Yeah.
I feel like with Ari, like we want to keep the simplicity. But I think going back to the very beginning, what really had to work for lighting is once we found the green,
Mm.
when a light absorbs differently, so the fluorescence in the green gave the reality to our green alphabet, but we needed to keep um, Galinda next to her, not being
Right.
in the light. So we used quite iridescent, luckily, we're into fashion here, quite iridescent, opalescent colors. So we had a reflection of both, but with completely different products from the technical side. But it made it work for Alice Brooks, our wonderful DP. It made the lighting work for both artists, which is very unusual from my point of view. Often we have to compensate, but we didn't. We had the beautiful princess quality, the true Alphaba reality, and then bringing them into maturity by deepening it. So, like for example, trying to give the strength to Galinda, we made her eyes much stronger.
Mm.
So, and it really had a wonderful effect. So her makeup is basically the same. We added for some scenes a stronger eye shadow, but really just the definition around her eyes, giving that extra length. And of course, the unspeakably wonderful performances from both really helped carry it all through and matched with the Paul Taswell's costumes and the sets from Nathan. The balance was perfect.
Amazing. I am embarrassed to say that I never thought of that challenge of having the green with her fair skin like that. My goodness, that's amazing. It's an amazing accomplishment to figure that out. Can you talk to me about the Tin Man and how humanizing that Tin Man to be such an emotional, beautiful character through makeup?
Well, Bach, of course, I mean, the brief, as you can imagine, was we had, that's our nod to the past, but it had to be in our story and be so believable, but leave all the emotion that Bach had to give at that time for that was truly like his total destruction. So it was making sure that that still shone through, but our young Bach had freer, looser, happier hair and days. And then he was very controlled by Nessa Rose and he was very contained in his look and his uniform. And then
Mm.
that transition in the room into Tin Man, where obviously we disappeared all the hair and everything, but you wanted to leave all those tears to flow over the pieces. So Mark Coolio, who made all the prosthetics and co-designed with me, it was super fine, super thin. So you nearly could even
Ah.
see bone skin, even though it was all pieces. I mean, I wrote down here like to remind myself of our numbers, how much I had on each person. I
Oh,
had how many pieces were on each artist, like for their
yeah.
transition. And we
Wow.
had eight on Tin Man. He had his little funnel hat. Um, but for us, and the brief was really let the emotion shine through. And so as he cried with frustration and anger and love, I think you
Mm.
could see the metal we turned like put rusty tear drops down it, to give him a transition in his very short time that we see him through what he's showing our world of what's been done to him. But
How powerful.
but you could really see Bok through him.
Mm.
There was no loss, was there? He had teeth, he had contact lenses, he had eight pieces. including his funnel. But I really feel that you could feel the heart and the soul. The work, the makeup work that I do, the visual
Hmm.
silent side, never took away from what Tin Man was portraying to the audience.
You have a several numbers written down on each artist, right? And so
Yeah.
who else was wearing prosthetics in the film?
Well, of course, Scarecrow.
Yes. And how many what numbers are we talking about
The
with
famous
Scarecrow?
scarecrow. Well, we're talking about six, and he had some hands as well. And
Oh, the
of course,
hands.
we don't consider the wig as a prosthetic, but I had filled it with prosthetics. Like I had Mark Coulier made for me wheat sheaths and uh, corn and straw and everything, which was sewn in or glued in, because you needed that. You needed the capability for it to keep its definition, even though the hat was on and off, and so much was happening to him. So much to portray. So he had his face pieces, and our brief there was that it was obviously the burlap. But of course, Jonathan has in as Fiero has a stubble all the time, and we put that
Right.
within the burlap as well. You'll see all the straw effect when you catch the side light on the scene with Elphaba, and when she's coming out of the what we can't call it the prison, but underneath the decks when he's
You
gone
can't
to
call it the prison.
under the deck in the castle. You can see the light catches all the hairs in his chin, and
Mhm.
it was just carrying
Yes.
through our true Fiero into our. The brief was to have it real, to for people still to connect and love and show the love. So though we had the folds of skin of burlap, which is sacking, all down his neck and the little tie round his neck and everything, the straw hair, you still had very much the feel of Fiero underneath. We changed the colour of his eyes. As Fiero, he was blue-eyed for the blue-eyed boy, and he comes from Winky Town, which is blue-based. But as our wonderful scarecrow, the damage is in the field, and we went back to his
Mm.
natural dark brown eyes, so you could really get swallowed up in it, and kept it much more earthy for that side of it. So it's very small artistic adjustments that
Yeah.
actually give a very good big picture.
Isn't it funny how powerful the eye color is and how, it's something that you're just born with and it carries so much weight emotionally and can really just changing an eye color can change a whole person and how they're perceived. It's fascinating.
With the eye color, very much with Cynthia as well. We looked at
Yeah.
the days and we went for like this is a very early prep before that we had the bigger teams on board. We had some time with her and put it on camera and just adding. We looked at her own eye color and adding green for
Yes.
her, but in a really fine, natural, off the shelf product. We found a green that just made her so vulnerable and as if you could see through to her soul, and it just worked. It just pulls everything together. And though it's a tiny detail, it's a very important detail.
Yes, the eye color is extraordinary. Now, that's all you basically are painting a contact lens at that point, is you're shaping the lens.
Yeah,
Okay.
so for Alphaba, the contact lens technician, like we did some
Hmm.
various, one off the shelf, which was the one I used, but we did various the hand painted ones, which are often used in our world on camera for depicting whatever character you're trying
Right.
to. We found with for Cynthia, what worked really well as Elphaba was actually the ones that you or I can buy off the
Oh,
shelf.
wow.
We could buy, but we went for those and obviously made to fit her eye, but ready mades off the shelf, and they just work so perfectly, and yet it's so simple an adjustment.
Wow. How do you, I know you talk about the green all day long, but what are the key elements to adding that depth to her green? And is it just simply the contour underneath, or is it the mixture of the greens? And did the green change at all during the two films?
Um, the it isn't truly. It's a very base color. And when I started in the prep, like long before the team
Hmm.
started and everything, we started what we call the Green Bible, and we worked on
Hmm.
looking at like how to get the green to have be a skin and not be a makeup on the surface.
Yes.
And that was really hard to achieve. But we went through many many trials and on models. So we didn't have Cynthia in the country, so we were trialing on models to try and perfect before she landed with us. And we did find that what made it work was a few drops of a fluorescent yellow in the base made the green look like a skin and not like a makeup. So through our trials, we might find something that worked in one light, but in the other light it didn't work. But with the fluorescent drops in the base, not only did it look like skin, it worked in every single light. So
Ah.
once we struck gold there, David Stoneman is a maker of our products, all bespoke makeup, and he made us all the greens, liters and liters of it that we worked through on the filming. And
Oh,
it
wow.
worked really well. It gave the light reflection. And then, as I said, when we did Galinda, our iridescent and opalescence on her bases, which made the balance in front of the lighting and camera work side by side.
The thought of getting a hold of that just one pint of that green, you must have to have like it locked up in safes. I can just see people wanting to be like, I gotta have that exact green. That's
Really, it's not a green on the market, but I do believe that it is something that the industry will be able to not necessarily green. The formation, the foundation
yeah,
of that product can be used in the future for other products. Will
Alphaba green.
Alphaba Green or Alphabas contacts in any shade you like.
Wow.
It doesn't
I
have
know.
to be green.
The branding never ends. The branding never ends. Oh my goodness. I mean, well, first I want to ask you this though, because that will take us in another direction. So I wanted to ask you about Elphaba's ears, and the development of that. And could you tell me a little bit about the development of her ears?
Yes, well, as you know, Cynthia has, I don't know exactly how many, but many piercings, and and understandably, like a simple way for a makeup person to lose a piercing is just by a little bit of, could be just foundation if they're not too deep, or it could be a little filler product like a tiny wax or something. But for that length of time and that many piercings, we really wanted to be protective of the long-term effects. So we used what we call, or I call, sleepers, like tiny little fillers for every piercing, and then put the little prosthetic ears that were made on over the top. And some days we used the top and the bottom, like both sides, but in time, really, it was just the top cover that was used. And it's something that it would have been wrong for Elphaba to have had many
Right.
piercings. We all know in the story she is her own person. She turns up at Shiz. She's not. She's dressed beautifully. She wears jewelry. She has a knowledge of herself, and so it was like adding to her, but
Mm,
not making her plain. It was something that we needed to lose. It would date it for me very much so,
right.
and that's something that you really don't want to, not as in date it in 2022 for whatever, but date it as in the long term when we're hoping 50 years from now,
Right.
plus people will still enjoy this story. One doesn't want to be distracted by something that is absolutely our era.
I think they will be enjoying it in 150 years. That's very interesting. Was there a discussion about that? What are we going to do about was there any pushback from Cynthia? Like,
Oh
I'm just,
no, not,
no, it's
not at
interesting.
all.
And then you talk about the timelessness and in this fantasy world, did you ever refer to a time, like a decade or a era? Yeah. It was
Never,
just
never.
this whole world.
We were truly in Oswald. And though, as everybody knows, true respect was paid to the original,
Yeah,
to all the books, to everything. References were used from the original, but never to interfere or because, of course, it's copyrights and all that were to be observed. But
totally.
no, taking references, acknowledging the beauty of what's gone in the past, but bringing your own future to it. And hopefully
Mm,
within that, and along with Paul and Nathan, for John and Mark, making it timeless, I think is very important. So whatever you think of, you might take it from history, and you might imagine what the future would be, but you need to always think about, is it timeless? I don't want to date this.
I love that. I really do because makeup trends and especially with Ariana, like, it can be stamped and it's so ethereal and beautiful. It could be at any time. Were there any rules in your world for makeup? Were there in the Oz world like no this color, no harsh lines, no were there any
We tried to
guidelines?
give each distinct town its own visuals,
Mm,
like Winky Town, where a
yeah.
Fiera town is based in blue, and my overall feel for it. And we gave Jonathan beautiful deep blue eyes, even though he has exquisite dark brown eyes. But it was very much a choice, like of it's very much a subliminal thing, but it really makes a huge overall effect. And so Winky Town is based within a blue color palette, which we stuck within until he's then goes on to be his captain, and he's in his greens and on to Wicked for Good. But and the period we sort of, if you visualize it or if you look back on it, was very much we kept them quite rolled, and along with Paul Taswell, and it had, if you reanalyze it, maybe like you might say a fantasy world, but within maybe a 1940s 50s
Yeah,
realm.
I can see
Um,
that.
a very clean look for Winkies, and then our Munchkins we had very much to design new, and I loved it that John and Mark Platt wanted to really keep it real and accessible. They didn't want to go into fantasy of red hair. We did do the visuals for them to work out that it wasn't where they wanted to go,
Ah,
but I very much liked the idea of redheads. You can have hundreds of redhead colors. So very much the idea of
true.
textures. They're very earthy people working with the plants and the dye, and therefore because they're out and they're agricultural people, they're tanned and they're freckled, and they're in general we did brown eyes, which is a very small thing, but
Mm.
luckily Ethan happened to have deep brown eyes. But it was something we carried through. We also carried through a visual where I think it's very hidden, is we kept the foreheads quite clear. We didn't do fringes, and we did that lovely textured curly hair, undressed but put away, but always off their face and off their forehead, and it gave them overall, with the beautiful layered costumes. It was very much layers and textures, as was the sets.
That's really interesting. Yeah, what a simple thing, but what an effective thing to just not have the fringe and the bangs. That's great. Was
Or
there?
straight hair. No
Yeah,
straight hair either.
yeah,
We had no straight hair, no
right.
bob. It was always like as if it had been let grow from birth, and even the men that had shorter hair and taken back, we did use braids and everything. But the important thing was the texture and the colours of the reds, and keeping it clear of the face really gave the Munchkin image, made it stand out in the crowd, which we really needed to in Wicked for Good, because the train station,
Right.
you have to recognise the Munchkins immediately, or the soldiers when they're stopping them from boarding the trains.
Yes. Yes. Do you remember that hair of the Munchkins? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Anything,
Slightly
anything to get
different.
away from that original
Yeah.
hair. Oh my goodness. And Michelle Yeoh, was there anything that changed from one movie to the next for you that you would like to speak on?
Oh, I think Madame Marble was a wonderful character, and with
Yes.
John Chu, the vibe we went for was her powers are the weather, and and
Right.
coming through with that pure white for the cloud, and when she's inches, using just wisps, like beautiful folds and curls and just wisps of hair coming off at odd angles for the symmetry of it all, and to work with her beautiful costumes. And then as she has her demise happens, first of all, her power with the wizard in Emerald City, and where she's very structured, and then her demise where she starts falling down, and we move to more tornadoes and lightning bolts, and she's gone off crazy, with
Yes.
all this hair going all over the place.
Yes.
But she carries everything so well. We kept her makeup very simple
Hmm.
and didn't show the change there. We really did it all within the white and the keeping the dark roots and keeping her strength, but um, really changing it as the weather would change. And of course, Michelle carried it beautifully.
What a force.
It tells its own story all by itself, really.
Right, right, right. Oh my goodness. I mean, those costumes, I just want to wear them around the house. Like, just extraordinary, amazing. Now, is there, I mean, I've seen headlines pontificating on potential sequels. Have you, is there a world where you see that happening?
My imagination
Yeah,
could.
I
I could
very
see
much think
people
so.
coming from this. What happens once they're walking out across Oz? I mean, together, hand
Yes.
in hand. Where does that go? That love. I mean, I would love to see that in its future. I would love to see the strength of Glinda and the goodness of her shining through in the world of Oz. But I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
We'll
But I
we'll
feel
we'll have
there's
to
a
make
lot.
it. Yes, there's a lot to explore there. And makeup wise too. What would you do to deepen the two of them to make them more stronger? It would be very interesting to see an aged Elphaba. That would be fascinating.
Yes, because I feel like her and Fiero or Scarecrow as he is then, their love is so emotional and strong. They're not going to go into structured, whereas if I was imagining
Yeah.
Linda running Oz, she might eventually, as she grows up, she might start putting her hair up out of the way and exposing herself a little more, not
Right.
losing that softness that her vulnerability. She
Yes.
might become stronger and more controlled. To me, visually, this
Yeah,
is.
yes.
Whereas Elphaba and Scarecrow, I feel that they would soften in their love and be much more with Mother Earth. If I
Oh,
was imagining it,
yes.
I'd be
Oh, beautiful.
I'd be
Yes.
going there.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, we'll have to make it so.
Oh, that would be a wonderful idea, wouldn't it? But
It
how
would.
about like Nessa Rose and
Yes.
where does what happens to Bop? We have so much to say about Tin Man still, I feel,
Yes.
you know, and will Nessa Rose pull him back? There's so much to say. Her control was enormous, wasn't it? Her strength, and bringing her from the young Nessa
Yes.
Rose when her sister Elphaba was looking after her, that scene where she's crying is so moving.
Hmm.
And then our grown up Nessa Rose, not grown up, she is that beauty and softness, and then her change. I
That,
would say when she started to not be able to control Bok anymore, or he
right,
didn't return her love.
right.
She turned into something else, didn't she? And I feel we showed that in her hairstyling as well, her severity,
Yes.
and how she lost that beautiful young girl with the soft keeping. I mean, there's very much a family texture thing going there as well.
Oh,
Parents from the hair textures, the strength of the curls. We very much married her into her sister. Again, it's something people don't really notice, but
yeah.
her hair down in shiz matches her sister's hair when that's much looser. The family visuals are very much there, right from the little girls,
Yes.
right from the baby Elphaba, really, but
That's
up through
true.
the sister. Yeah, we did took all the textures and looked at the bigger picture to make the story really.
Oh, wow. Nessa Rose. That's amazing. She's going to get her own origin story. Well, we saw the origin story, so we'll have to see her, you
I
know.
know. Sadly, we've lost her.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's under a house somewhere, and she's lost her shoes as well, so she's
The
got
the
no hope.
the biggest tragedy of them all. Yes, losing the shoes. Oh, well, Francis, it has been so wonderful spending this time with you. I love this conversation and I appreciate everything that you shared with me and good luck with the rest of this journey. It's just beginning for you. You're going to be talking all things Wicked for Good then through the award season and I hope for the best for you and the team.
No, thank you so much. There's a lovely hidden story behind Fiero and his horse as well, of course, which
Tell
is
me.
again his blue horse. Well, as you know, like we had the horse from Bridgeton because Jonathan and Jack are old friends and relate very much to each other. But of course, horses don't always perform. So Jack was our main horse, but we had a horse that was maybe a better runner that might be doing a run sequence somewhere else, or another horse that's better at standing still.
Oh,
So within the company who owned the horses, what we did was one horse was white, one was mid brown, and one was dark brown. So all the horses were shaved, all the horses were dyed black from a dye that we know is safe from the horses from Japan, which the horse company did. And then we added hair extensions and tail extensions, so every horse matched completely, and then painted this bespoke iridescent blue
Oh,
so every horse, so that no matter what light you got it in, hopefully when it's in the really good lights you can really see it. When it's darker it's not so visible, but each horse was then painted every time they performed, and usually sometimes we painted 3 horses a day every time they performed, so that every horse that was needed for John and Fiero at that time to perform what was needed was there. But it really is like a little backstory, I think, that people don't often notice or see, but now I think what people will, and of course Jack is our lead performer, but it's very much like when you have stunts and doubles, it's that
yes.
story but in a horse form.
Yes, I
Horse story.
love that. And I, of course, immediately want also them to market the blue. I want I want it for myself. I want to put it
Yeah.
all over myself too.
We started with, funny enough, with blue iridescent eyeshadows. What? Because the market was full of them at the time. It was very much. So we got everything I could find that existed, and then looked at what gave a lovely reflection and everything. What would work in lights, and then we took that, and it was based in. David Soman making again, based it in different formats to see when you painted it on the horse what worked, because some wouldn't move on the horse hair,
Really?
was lumpy.
Oh,
Some I thought
wow.
was based in a what's called a pig oil, but it's not made. It's just not. It's not an animal oil at all. That's what it's called, and it's used to shine horses' hoofs and to
Okay.
shine their hair, and that was the basis of the iridescent blue. And then they added the blue to that, and it went on the horses beautifully and reflected the light as perfectly as was needed.
Do you happen to remember what blue eyeshadow that was?
No, it wasn't a
No.
one base. So yeah,
Yeah, okay,
we
okay.
never get locked into one product. I mean, the same with our green alpha. We never locked into one product. We designed the product and then based
Right.
it in the right base for the airbrushing, as was on Alphabet, or within the horse. It was hand painted on by 2 or 3 artists each.
It's its own entity.
Maybe there's another one we could
I
behold.
know. I know. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking
Yeah,
that. See?
Pierre and Castle and the horse.
I love that. And that's a good Halloween costume for people now. We have to come up with different ones. It can't all just be Glinda and Elphaba. We have to do the horse. And yes. Oh, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, look behind you. The sky is the most beautiful blue I have ever seen. Look at that. It's just gorgeous. We've talked into the night.
We have in mind that it's very, very much our color, our iridescent blue of our Fiero's horse,
I'm
isn't it?
That's
It's
what
very
I'm thinking.
good.
It's
Yeah.
like art imitating life before our very eyes. Yes, this is a sign.
Well,
This is a
we're very
sign.
lucky. Yeah. I'm very lucky to have had our art and our John Chu and Mark Platt to do the art with. I was very lucky to have worked with John before, so
Oh,
I,
did you?
I
What did you work on? I'm so sorry
we
to.
did now you see me too together.
No, I love that movie.
I did too.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Oh, I
So we had a
love.
history. So it was so nice the first time we met again, like to discuss who is right for the job. And John Chu was so wonderful and remembered everything. And so it seemed like it went without saying that we were going to get back together again.
That's wonderful. And like with such a daunting task, and you just said yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, all
yes.
I needed was John Chu and Mark Platt to say yes. It was just it wasn't daunting. It was the most fulfilling films, as in two, but we treat it as one, that the most fulfilling project I've ever had the pleasure of working on. And I have been lucky with my work. So it really was such a pleasure to work with everybody.
Well, all of that goodness shows on the screen for sure. That's absolutely a fact. It's
All that goodness, perfect.
yeah, yes, yes. All that goodness. Well, thank you so much, Francis. This has been a wonderful time. Everybody go see Wicked for Good if you haven't already. I'm sure you have. And congratulations on your success with this film.
Thank you so much. So lovely to speak with you as well, Tiffany. Thank you.
Look Behind the Look is a Vinyl Foot production, written by me, your host, Tiffany Bartok, produced by Jace Bartok, edited by Victoria Pastorelli. If you're interested in learning more, find our video version on the YouTube channel, Look Behind the Look Podcast. There you can see rare photos and clips from our guests. And please follow us on Twitter at LookBehindPod and Instagram at LookBehindTheLook. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe. And tell your friends and spread the word. You can subscribe to us on iTunes or any podcatcher of your choice. Thanks for listening to Look Behind the Look.